KINGER's madness has long been a commonplace. However, in the third episode of the Amazing Digital Circus, we are shown the real reason for this strange behavior, and it turns out that being in this circus for so long hasn't really affected him. The main thing that has all fans and viewers of the Digital Circus hooked is his wife, the Black King. As Gooseworx pointed out, the third episode is not only about Zubul, but also about KINGER. This character is revealed from a completely unexpected side, different from the way we used to perceive him. Now he's not just an eccentric madman obsessed with collecting insects, he appears as a real Giga Chad, full of charisma and power. We clearly see his condition change from madness to lucidity and back again. Finally, we have the opportunity to find out what is really going on with KINGER. His inner turmoil that previously remained a mystery begins to reveal itself to us, and each new moment only adds to the intrigue. In this episode, we see not only changes in his behavior, but also hints at the hidden reasons for his obsessions and oddities, which makes his character even deeper and more layered. First, let's look at KINGER's behavior in the third episode and how it changes. From the very beginning, KINGER behaves exactly as he did in the previous episodes. His behavior remains insane and extremely inadequate. He suddenly shrieks again, falls into a stupor, then abruptly comes back to life, shouting incoherent nonsense. All his actions seem chaotic and senseless, and he gives the impression of an unstable person immersed in his own "no one understands" worlds. In fact, at first glance, nothing has changed. The same KINGER who seems completely lost in reality. The middle of the third episode really becomes a turning point for KINGER. Gradually, there is a tangible change in his behavior and thoughts. He stops behaving inappropriately. His chaotic outbursts are replaced by reasoned reflection. KINGER seems to be transformed. His ability to think and analyze appears, and he begins to show signs of real awareness. This change is especially noticeable against the background of the previous madness and nervous outbursts. The trigger seems to be the recordings of Mr. Mildenhall, the former owner of the mansion in which the action unfolds. The voice on the record player piques KINGER's interest and seems to bring him back to himself, awakening his rationality. Perhaps in these recordings, KINGER finds echoes of his own thoughts or feelings that give him a point of reference in this chaotic world. It is like a conversation with a distant interlocutor that helps him return to his real self, showing the viewer a whole new aspect of his personality. After listening to the recording, our heroes have two paths. The first is easy, the second is hard. If we choose the easy path, we are peacefully drinking tea with Mrs. Mildenhall, discussing life. However, on the difficult path, we'll have to face her crazy husband, or rather, his spirit and other strange creatures. KINGER in this situation does not just behave seriously, he becomes really brave. When he has a shotgun in his hands, he already understands how to use it and realizes the importance of each of the two cartridges, knowing that they should be saved for the most dangerous moments. When we saw KINGER with a shotgun in the announcement or teaser, he seemed crazy, but now it's clear that this is a much more thoughtful and brave character. KINGER makes good use of the opportunity. We see him go from being serious to being brave and calculating. He immediately rushes to Pomni's defense and even saves her. It's hard to believe that this is the same character who once flinched at any noise. Of course, we can assume that KINGER is a typical psychopath who is comfortable in critical situations, but is completely lost in a calm environment. However, by the end of the third episode, it becomes clear that he is far too understanding and calculating for a psychopath. We also see him continue to tell his Pomni story, which we will come back to later. And so, together with Pomni, they overcome the most difficult challenge. His breath-holding glow seems to symbolize that KINGER is a much lighter and deeper person than might have appeared at first glance. We finally see his true face and get to know him more intimately. In the end, he once again comes across as the most stable and balanced individual. But in fact, all this was already known, and I just retold the events of the series. Now the question arises, what caused this behavior of KINGER? Why did he turn into such an eccentric character? Is he actually insane? Or is there something deeper behind his seeming unbalanced behavior? Perhaps his madness is just a mask, a defensive reaction to a world full of danger, and in fact, KINGER has the insight and adaptability to survive in these difficult conditions. The answer lies on the surface, and we are explicitly told about it. The cause of KINGER's madness lies in his wife. We've discussed this before, and everyone is well aware that it was the loss of his wife that was the key factor in his mental state. Sure, being in the circus may have played a part in their weirdness, but it was the loss of a loved one that finally broke KINGER. He had never behaved so eccentrically before. Yes, he has definite memory problems, but he himself admitted that it is the memories of his wife that he keeps to this day. When KINGER looks into the mouth of a ghost, he remembers his abstracted wife as if he sees her reflection in that image. And listening to Mr. Mildenhall's tape recorder, KINGER's thoughts return to her loss, because this is the man involved in her death. The guilt of what happened torments KINGER, making him endlessly sad and sinking into his madness. His suffering is evident in his every action, because he cannot let go of the pain of loss, which makes him so unstable. KINGER himself mentioned that darkness is a kind of trigger for him. It is in these moments that he begins to remember the events surrounding his wife, as if that same darkness brings him back to that tragic situation. In his mind, the Dark Queen may have been trying to contain her essence by being a monster lurking in the shadows. However, for Kaufmo, the dark room brought no relief. Perhaps he had been trying to suppress his aggression and hatred all along, using jokes and anecdotes as a way to deal with stress. However, behind the facade of jocularity, Kaufmo was hiding a deep pain that he could not express any other way. His jokes were not just a way of diffusing, but also a way of warding off his own demons, which may have come out at the worst possible time. The Black Queen probably didn't have any hatred, but despite that, Kane still had to send her to the basement, because she's abstracted and there's just nothing to do with characters like that anymore. However, KINGER and Queen's love proved to be so strong that she didn't finally turn into an insane monster. Perhaps abstracted players can keep their sanity for a while, though there are no guarantees on that. KINGER's love for his wife has not disappeared. She is the one who helps him survive in this digital circus. What's more, KINGER has been able to redirect that love to others. His concern for others has become his way of coping with stress. He draws on memories of his wife, who changed him a lot. In the past, KINGER hated insects, but because of her, he grew to love them and it became his trademark, his insect collection. The irony is that no one could have imagined that behind the collection was a deep personal transformation. By the way, his most favorite insect is the butterfly, a symbol of metamorphosis. It reflects his inner changes and ability to adapt, which makes his attachment to it even more symbolic. KINGER also draws on those around him, those who, like him, have found themselves in the digital circus. He considers them his friends, and by the end of the second episode, this friendship was especially emphasized. The characters begin to grow closer, and in the third episode, their unity is revealed even more. I once made a video about Jax after the second episode where I analyzed his behavior, and you could see how KINGER handles the situation compared to him. In this bleak, seemingly hopeless atmosphere, KINGER finds support in those around him. Pomni's behavior begins to change as well. Despite her hardships, she seems to begin to realize that things are not all bad. In her dialogue with Pomni, she confesses to Ragatha that she is very grateful to her because from Pomni's first moments in the circus, she has always been there to support and comfort her. This moment emphasizes the power of friendship and mutual support, which becomes a lifeline for the characters in this closed world. Pomni expresses her gratitude to Ragatha, reaffirming that even in desperate situations, there are those who can be relied upon. The second realization that may well come to Pomni is that yes, all the characters in the circus have their oddities and flaws. Each of them is unstable in their own way, especially KINGER, who is considered the main madman here. But it turns out that his eccentricity hides his intelligence and kindness, even despite the most difficult event in his life. And it's not just getting caught up in the digital circus, but the loss of a loved one. KINGER continues to retain his humanity and concern for others. His inner strength and willingness to support those around him show that even those who seem odd or broken can be a support and a source of light for others in this closed and dark world. No matter how you look at it, you have to admit, KINGER continues to be a bit psycho most of the time. However, his weirdness, unlike Jax's antics, doesn't hurt anyone. Today he's kind, tomorrow he's distracted, today he's fearful, tomorrow he's a little irritated, and so it goes round and round. He goes crazy in his own way, but still manages to care about others. Doesn't that make him a true hero, albeit in his own way? What do you, the viewers, think about it? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on the bell so you don't miss new videos. Good luck to everyone.